Hi, and welcome to my new and revamped news segment. I even come with official papers that we are going to not read. But I wanted to do something a little fun for our news segments because we are trying to do more consistent news. But today is all about the new Commander news. If you are following along on any of the Magic communities, you know all about the future or the state of Commander. But I wanted to dive into the article, talk to you a little bit about my opinions, my thoughts. I had a really healthy discourse on my Discord with some of my friends that play Magic, and specifically, they almost holistically play Commander. So it's been really interesting. There are a lot of different takes about it. But let's go ahead and jump into the actual article. So I'll leave a link to the article below here. But what we're seeing is, first and foremost, some terrible things from the community, in my opinion. This has been kind of crazy. This whole sentence right here is, over the past week, the conversation has escalated, culminating with unacceptable personal threats to the safety of members of the Commander Rules Committee. This is something we will not tolerate, no matter how you feel about something in Magic. It is never appropriate to threaten somebody. Everyone at Wizards of the Coast is united on this front. We will not hesitate to take action against individuals who threaten to harm community members or employees. So this all comes from the Commander Rules Committee, and how over the last week or so there was a banning that came out. It was like Nadu, Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, and then there was a third one. We're doing this stuff on the fly, so we're gonna pull this up real quick. So Dockside Extortionist, here's the cards here. Dockside Extortionist, which was a 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 red, 1/2 creature goblin pirate. And when Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. That one was banned. Jeweled Lotus was banned. This was all about mana ramp. It's a 0-cost artifact. You can tap it, turn and sacrifice it, add 3 mana of any one color, spend this mana only to cast a commander. So it is a specifically commander-only deck. Some people have gotten it to work, I think, in like Vintage, and do some crazy stuff with it there. But for the most part, it's a command-only card. Next up was another 0-cost mana generation. It's an artifact, and at the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you. Otherwise, it is tap it for 2 colorless mana. And then they brought the ban of Nadu from Modern into Commander as well. The card was just kind of broken. You could do all of the same stuff that you could do in Modern, and for that aspect, that was banned as well. And so the Commander Rules Committee banned these cards, and this was on a week ago, so literally 7 days ago. And in that time, there has been some really, really disgusting things said to this committee, to the point where several of them quit. They just straight up resigned from the group. And a lot of it has to do with the unfortunate state of, I think, Magic cards in general, where people treat it like a stock market, and they're really trying to, there was a lot of lost value in the cards all of a sudden. Mana Crypt was a little bit more resilient to those changes because of the fact that it was still available in Vintage, but Jeweled Lotus lost a ton of value. Some folks saw the price go down to a third or even a quarter of what it was before. Technically, folks are the Magic the Gathering stock market exchange out there is showing the prices on it at about half of what it was back in the day. I'm trying to see if I can find a quick one here for you. What is it? Is it just Magic the Gathering stocks? There we go. Here we go. And then you see things like Jeweled Lotus up here. Search or that was Mana Crypt. Jeweled Lotus. Is it not going? Can I search the Jeweled Lotus card? Jeweled. Thank you. There we go. So we see this significant drop off in price. We're seeing all-time low at $68, all-time high as was around $174. So we're seeing it hovering around a half of what it used to be, which is crazy. And so a lot of people felt like their entire net worth was eliminated and had violent exchanges with and things to say towards the rules committee, which was the big issue. And it was really unfortunate, and it was really, really ugly look for the Magic community and Magic players in general. And I just had some thoughts on that. I was just like really interested in having conversation with it. And to me, it's like rules change, and when rules change, things get deprecated. You can take any sport out there. I mean, even somewhat recently, I don't know, in the last handful of years or so, you know, I believe it was Nike that came out with the running shoe that they ended up banning because it gave you too much advantage in long distance running, and people were breaking like sub 2 hour or almost breaking sub 2 hour marathon times, and like there was just too much spring in the shoe, so they banned the shoe, and that was a really expensive shoe, and a bunch of people invested in the shoe, and now they can't use the shoe, right? Like, it happens. And then it happens in other formats of Magic. They make bans, and all of a sudden, a competitive card is worth nothing anymore. I mean, like, look at Nadu. Nadu was dominating the modern scene. It was banned, and people are like, oh, okay. And then they kept moving forward. They didn't take it as a personal assault and like, start threatening people because of the ban. I mean, we're probably going to see a ban of the One Ring, and I am, as a personal owner of the One Ring, I got in early, and I think I bought the cards at like $75 a piece, and they're going now for $150 a piece. And so at some point that's going to get banned, and like, my net worth is not in these cards, right? It's a game that I'm playing, and I want to play it at a competitive level, and I know the investment I need to make that happen. And that's all it is. And like, Commander being specifically a social game, where it's like, I'm going to sit around the table with some friends, we're going to play some games, hopefully we're roughly around the same power level, and we can enjoy the game together without some dickhead coming to the table with this like OP deck that's worth thousands and thousands of dollars and just blowing everybody out of the water. There is a format for that. It's called CEDH, Competitive Commander. And so, like, go over there, and everybody else is having those types of matches, right? So it's just so crazy to me that this reaction from the community because of their investment in these cards. And I'm like, guys, come on. Like, rules change all the time in competitive things, and it makes certain equipment illegal. It makes new equipment viable. And then especially in a competitive card game, or really, we're talking Commander, this is a social card game. Like, yes, we understand we want to polish your deck and make it as most efficient as possible, but at some point, you start getting out of the casual and you start moving into competitive. And if that's where your mindset is, then you know you're playing to... You're buying in to play at a competitive level. And those prices and those things are going to change. So all that to be said, super ugly of the community for this to even happen. And as the natural response to this is that Wizards of the Coast is stepping in. They're going to take over the whole management of Commander, the direction of Commander. So you'll read here in today, in partnership with members of the existing Rules Committee, that's the few people that are left, we are announcing that the Rules Committee is giving management of the Commander format to the game design team of Wizards of the Coast. So it was a very interesting change, and it's kind of like you got what you asked for, right? Like, we had this third party that was doing their best. They were doing it as a part-time job, a labor of love, and now it's been in Wizards' hands, and we don't know where it's going to go with that. I'm keeping a positive outlook on this. I know some people think that, Wizards is just another corporate machine that's trying to make the money machine go burr, right? But I'm like, it's how businesses run. Like you run a business to make money. You run a business in a way that it makes sense for your user base, so you don't lose people, that you continue to grow your customer base and to treat your customer base as best as you can to build loyalty so that they keep coming back and buying more product. That is business 101. Like, deliver a good product so that people buy the product and that they come back for more product, right? That's a business. That's just how businesses work. Are they going to make some decisions that upset people? Sure. So do the big companies. Chipotle makes bad decisions. Nike makes bad decisions. Starbucks makes bad. Like, name a big company out there. They're going to make a bad decision and they're going to lose some people. And those some people sometimes are just louder than the majority. And I think this is what we see happen here. Now it's going into Big Papa's hands, and we're gonna see what happens. I'm really hoping this statement stays true. Commander has always, unless you hit the space button, Commander has always been a community-focused format, and this move in management does not change that. I'm really hoping that they are going to come together and really focus on community feedback from this and make some changes that I think have been due for a while. And I don't know who is in a better position to make those decisions. They did announce that there is a Magic Discord. I have gone out to it, and this Commander news channel does not yet exist. It says no access. I don't know if I'm clicking something wrong in there. I'll dig more deeply into it, but I tried. We'll also see a stream live tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, so that's 1 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv Magic, where they're going to talk more about this. So this is one of my favorite things, and one of the things I'm most excited about with Wizards being as part of this is that they're going to address one of my biggest concerns or complaints, if I even have one, about Commander, is just knowing what power level people are playing. I have played... I can't say I've played as many as everybody else, but I've played probably a dozen to 24 like community commanders. Like, you go to the local bar, they're having a commander night, or you go to the LGS and they're having a commander night. I've done that about a dozen times, maybe a dozen and a half times. And every other time I've played Commander has been around my kitchen table or a friend's kitchen table, enjoying an adult beverage and just having time with friends. It was like another board game to play, but it was Magic. It was something to play that we all enjoyed playing. However, when it was just friends, it was just messy, jank decks that we threw together and had some fun. Sometimes you came in with a pre-con. Actually, as I got older, I didn't want to build decks anymore, so I was just like, give me pre-cons. So I always just showed up with pre-cons, and I might put a $30 upgrade in there to smooth out the mana curve and put a couple better cards in it. Well, they're looking to do a more objective approach to deck power level and additional guidance, shared language for players to find the match the type of game they're trying to play. So their initial thought, this is the initial idea. So I think this is a qualifying statement. I think some people have already taken this as concrete. It might fall into something like this, but they're just pitching an idea. They were literally handed this format like today or yesterday, and they're pitching an idea. And the idea here is that there are 4 power brackets, and that every commander deck can be placed into one of those brackets. By examining the cards and the combinations in your deck and comparing them to lists we'll need community help to create. So again, pushing it back on the community. And now some people have said, hey, they might start that way, but it might fade over time. I'm like, yeah, that's always a thing too. But at least at this part, we are assuming that they're going to continue to do this community-focused approach for it. You can imagine bracket 1 is the baseline of an average pre-constructed deck or below, and bracket 4 is high power. For the lower tiers, we may lean on a mixture of cards and a description of how the deck functions, and the higher tiers are likely defined by more explicit lists of cards. They go on to show an example here. For example, you can imagine a bracket 1 has cards that can easily go into any deck, like Swords to Plowshares, which is exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. It's a 1 mana, 1 white, pretty common card. Or Grave Titan. It's a 6/6 death touch for 6. CMC, so 4 colorless, 2 black, creature giant. Death Touch, whenever Grave Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, create 2/2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Fairly common in Commander, right? Commander has always been about, like, I want to play my big creatures and do fun stuff, right? And it's unoptimal play, but it's fun. Like, what's not fun about a big old 6/6 that makes little 2/2 zombies? And then Cultivate. It's a 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards, put one onto the battlefield, tapped, and the other into your hand, then shuffle, right? Whereas Bracket 4 would have cards like some of these crazy ones. 1 black instant, search your library for a card, then shuffle and put that card on top. You may lose 2 life. Like Vampiric Tutor, I'm going to search through 100 cards and find the very specific one I need and put it on top, right? That's OP, right? That's scary. Or Armageddon, destroy all lands. Like, that's a Bracket 4. Like, you don't want that at your casual game where I'm showing up with my squirrel deck and I'm just over here trying to make a bunch of fucking squirrels that turn sideways and chitter at you. Like, that's all that we're doing with our, like, in these like tier 1, tier 2 decks. And then you come in with an Armageddon, like, nobody wants you at the table. Like, you're not in the right bracket. Like, go play with the people that are being assholes and blowing up all your land. Like, that makes sense. Like, put them in a different bracket. Grim Monolith, 2 colorless artifact here. Grim Monolith does not untap during your untap phase. Add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. Pay 4, untap Grim Monolith. So just huge mana ramp for that. So make the game much more. These cards obviously make the game much more consistent, lopsided, or fast than the average deck can engage with. So that is something that's really interesting. One comment, though, the next paragraph was something I thought was a little bit more controversial. So in this system, your deck would be defined by its highest bracket card or cards. This makes it clear what cards go where and what kind of cards you can expect people to be playing. For example, if Ancient Tomb is a bracket 4 card, so Ancient Tomb, again, is no cost, add to, well, it's a land, duh. So it's a no cost because it's a land. Add 2 colorless. Ancient Tomb deals 2 damage to you. So it's just huge mana ramp, right? For example, so if Ancient Tomb is a bracket 4 card, your deck would generally be considered a 4. But if it's part of a Tomb-themed deck, then the conversation may be, my deck is a 4 with Ancient Tomb, but 2 without it. Is that okay with everybody? My friend did bring up the point, though, that is somewhat true. I don't want to call anybody out, but in general, if you show up to a Commander night, you're going to find that not everybody is at the highest level of social skills. So having conflict like this and navigating conflict at the table isn't always the smoothest thing in a room full of, I'm self-admitted, nerds, right? Like, I'm a big nerd too. I just happen to, like, I work in sales, so I got to talk to people all the time. Conflict's part of my job. Like, it's what I'm used to, but not everybody's used to that. Somebody comes in the table and says, hey, we're 1s and 2s. I'm a 3 or a 4. I want to sit down here. And they're like, oh, okay. But we're 2s, I guess. Okay. Like, it happens. I see it happen all the time. So, like, you're putting this back on the players, which is not always the most efficient way to do things. And then it kind of gets messy with, like, hey, I'm walking around with our 1 or 2 deck, but because I have this 1 card in there, the whole thing's a 4. I'm like, I think it needs to be like a percentage of the deck, like or a certain threshold. Like, it needs to have at least 5 cards, so 5% of the deck or something like that meet certain criteria. Like I said, this is complicated. I don't think this is easy in any way. I don't envy whoever's going to have to do this and work through this, because it's hard. I mean, we've already gone through and we have things like Legacy and Vintage and Modern and Pioneer and Standard, but those are set cards. Maybe something like that happens in Commander. It's, certain eras, and then in those eras of cards, then, you're golden. Like, that's a tier 1. Those are or bracket 1. This is this most recent era of cards. Or if it's bracket 4, it like goes back to a certain era. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But I do think having a more defined bracket system is going to be important for the success of the game so that it's easier. I think some people are saying the barrier of entry will be harder because now there's all these rules, but I'm like, it's like any game. Any game you walk into. I'm going to go play Settlers of Catan, right? Like, I got to learn the rules. I got to learn the strategies. You got to learn a few things before you walk in. And if you want to make it easy on yourself, the barrier to entry is probably the easiest I've ever seen it with any of the formats is like go buy a pre-con and play that. Or like take a pre-con list and say, oh, here, use this as inspiration. And then like if you have a bunch of magic cards, like put some together. And then check the list and say, oh, hey, do any of the cards off the cards I put together make me super powerful? If so, maybe cut those and find some less powerful ones so that I can go play at that bracket 1 or 2. Like, I don't know the answer here. I just think the bracket system is necessary to make this easier. I've been at tables, like, I don't mind. I think it's funny to see a deck go off and like do some crazy shit. Like, I don't know. I'm sitting there with my pre-con most of the time, and sometimes I've upgraded the pre-con. And I'm just over there making squirrels, turning them sideways. Like, that's all. I'm just here to like have a beer with friends and like hang out and like do some magic, right? So all that to be said, I think this is huge. I think this is the big thing that they need to address is the bracket system. They fully admit, like, are they going to make perfect games? No. But the other final point that I really want to talk about is this current banned card list alongside both Commander Rules Committee and the community. They're going to be evaluating those. So this could potentially mean cards like Jeweled Lotus and the Mana Crypt and the Dockside Extortionist and maybe not Nadu. Nadu's just flat broken. They wrote a whole article about how Nadu's broken. So, but maybe Jeweled Lotus, which is essentially a Commander-only card, and a Mana Crypt come back. So right now, the prices, I think, are really interesting. So, you know, they're saying that the price is way down on these cards. I did manage to find a couple go on eBay for like $40, but like good luck. Everybody's hounding them. I would say now might be the time to try to get yourself a cheaper Jeweled Lotus or Mana Crypt to add to your collection, because I don't know. If I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I do like to throw a few dollars down on the table when I'm in Vegas every now and then. I'd say they're probably going to get unbanned. I don't know. We'll see. But they're going to take a look at the whole list and see if all of them need to be banned. Maybe they find a new home in the bracket system. The other thing about that bracket system that's not called out, this is just for the casual play. I think CEDH is still going to be its own thing. So that's going to be in its own category outside of the bracket system. So all that to be said, I'm really interested to see how this unfolds. I don't think it affects your tabletop games with friends in your own kitchen. The only thing this is really going to affect is if the only place you're playing Commander is at your LGS in an organized structure event versus maybe going down to your local game bar or maybe to your LGS with just your friends. Like, the rules that you set between you and your friends are not going to change. They're just there for you and your friends to have a little bit of guidance. So with that in mind, we're going to break the fourth wall, go back over here, and have more exciting Duskmourn news. And we're going to just close it out with thank you for hanging out, checking out the news, my opinions on the new Commander news. If you like this video, go ahead, like, subscribe. If you like Magic the Gathering content, follow along. I am documenting my path to pro, set a goal starting this year to try to qualify for the Pro Tour in the next 5 years. And so I make a lot of Magic the Gathering content here. And news is just part of that. So until next time, as I always like to close these out, we'll catch you at the table.